So hello, everyone. I think we'll get started. Jalasi and welcome. My name is Shelley Denny, and I'm the Director of Aquatic Research and Stewardship at the Untitled Institute of Natural Resources in the traditional Mi'kmaq district of Untitled, also known as Cape Breton Island. We gather for this event, which is located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. From 1725 to 1761, the Mi'kmaq British Crown entered into a series of treaties that are known as the Peace and Friendship Treaties. The Mi'kmaq treaties are about relationship and diplomacy, and maintaining and structuring relationships between diverse nations, Aboriginal and European. The treaties established a political order intended to prescribe nation-to-nation relationships. Apoqnmatulti'k, a Mi'kmaq word for we help each other, is an NSERC-funded project that enables collaborative stewardship through a holistic partnership that includes Mi'kmaq knowledge holders, local harvesters, academic researchers, and government scientists. Apoqnmatulti'k draws on the strengths of different knowledge systems, also referred to ways of knowing, to better understand the movements of gutau, American eel, juggage, American lobster, and bunamu, Atlantic tomcod, in Atlantic Canada's Bay of Fundy and Brador Lake ecosystems. We'll take you through, take questions throughout the presentation. If you're watching us on Zoom, you can submit your questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. And if you're watching today on Facebook Live, you can leave your questions in the comments section below the video. We will select a few questions to answer throughout our discussion today. And to begin, I would like to call on each of our panelists to describe their role in the project and what Apoqnmatulti'k means to you. Alana, we'll start with you, followed by Darren, then Skylar.
So Gwen and Deluise and Alana. So hello, my name is Alana. I'm from Apoqnmatulti'k and I'm the community liaison for the Apoqnmatulti'k project. And what Apoqnmatulti'k, sorry, I'm just learning how to say it, means to me is coming together for the future of these culturally significant species. When you're combining different perspectives, it strengthens the knowledge, information, and data. And it also creates the knowledge exchange. And that's what's beneficial and important to me. What about you, Skylar?
My name is Skylar Jador. Deluise is Skylar Jador. And I'm the community liaison and the field technician in the Brador Lakes part of the Apoqnmatulti'k project. And to me, Apoqnmatulti'k means that we help each other, but also it means not just we help each other, it means we all help each other. And basically we get the local fishers and the Mi'kmaq knowledge holders, and we have the researchers from Dell coming in, and we all come in to have one goal in the end with helping each other. And I'm gonna go with Darren.
I'm Darren Porter. I'm a commercial fisherman as well as a spokesman for the local fisheries. Also involved with a fair bit of work with science and other projects and Mi'kmaq. I bring to the table my network, my knowledge, and expertise around gear deployment, fish capturing, area information, local knowledge from years back, as well as other contacts within government and as well as institutions that other people may not have. This is my 6th project like this. This is an evolution, the way I see it. This project is exceeding the other ones in the communication from the get-go. I believe it's been very well done, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you for your introductions. And I'd like to briefly describe two-eyed seeing as the guiding principle that we've incorporated within the project. And two-eyed seeing is coined by Elder Albert Marshall and refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous knowledges and ways of knowing, and from the other eye, the strengths of Western knowledges and ways of knowing, and using both these eyes together for the benefit of all. And two-eyed seeing isn't simply the inclusion of one knowledge system within another. It's the creation of new knowledge together that uses the strengths of each knowledge system. Rather than thinking of knowledge as the what, we prefer to think of knowledge as a verb. As a knowledge system, the what of knowledge is influenced by how we know. And this is largely influenced by our values that are derived from our beliefs. Two-eyed seeing requires space to co-learn and co-develop knowledge. It goes beyond inclusion to equality and partnership, where respectful dialogue can take place. It builds on the desire to leave one's comfort zone with the expectation to explore another way of interpreting the world around you. One of the things that we can expect in two-eyed seeing is for our knowledge systems to collide. But while this may be a potential barrier to collaborating, it's also the opportunity for two-eyed seeing. is here where values and beliefs and underlying tensions surface. Instead of walking away from those collisions, our project, Apoqnmatulti'k, takes another approach. Alana and Darren, how have we been putting these guiding principles into practice in the Bay of Fundy, and why is doing so important to you?
I can start. We're putting the guiding principles to use by making sure that our working group is included in the project and using their knowledge to guide the work that we do. Our working group consists of local knowledge holders, elders, Mi'kmaq knowledge holders, harvesters, and leadership. It's important to include this knowledge and information into our work as we are stronger together. Darren?
Yeah, the follow-up on Atlanta is education is a freeway. It should be treated as a freeway, not a one-way street. And with these projects, we're respecting each other's knowledge systems, whether it be indigenous, local, academic, traditional, whatever name you want to put to them, they're given equal respect. And when done so, we're seeing through each other's eyes and each other's perspectives. We create a much more rounded program from the get-go. Our collection is done properly of our animals with agreements amongst each other, which is often missed in normal academic studies, whereas they're producing products, papers, and students. Our fundamental differences amongst us, where for myself, I'll speak for myself, I'm looking for productivity of the ecosystem, preservation of the ecosystem, and I'm not really looking for the products. When you put everybody together and we get together, what we're doing is we're looking at each other's values, each other's goals, and we're implementing them together to create what we think is truer science or wisdom.
Thank you, Alana and Darren. And Skylar, how are we putting this into practice in the Brador Lakes, and why is that important to you?
With the two-eyed seeing part, I am the two-eyed seer, and I'm learning ways from the Mi'kmaq knowledge holders side, which they know a lot what goes on in the Brador Lakes that the scientists are not studying. And also I'm picking up through the other side, the skills from working with the researchers on the field and in the lab, as well as the training workshops I have taken. So from learning with the both sides, it has played a very important role with my capacity building in the project.
Thank you. Lalio, thank you for those perspectives. And we're just beginning to receive a few questions from our audience now. So we will be asking our panelists to answer a selection of these questions. And let me switch over to the chat to see what questions we have. Nope, we don't seem to have too many questions. But if you do have any questions, we do encourage you to put them in the question box. And we're going to proceed to the next questions for our panelists. So many of us really are aware that not all learning happens in a book, and this is things that both Darren, Alana, and Skylar as well, so all three panelists have referred to. So there's also a lot to be learned from each other. But that learning space must be created, and we must be aware that knowledge systems will collide. So it's important to understand each other's knowledge systems, but equally important is to understand your own knowledge system. What I enjoyed in particular about this project is that space that we created. Here's the opportunity where we all interact and we all learn from each other and respect that diversity that we each bring to the project. And that space allowed for equality amongst the research team. But there's a transfer of knowledge and opportunities for learning throughout the project. Now I would like to reach out to the panelists to describe from their perspectives other opportunities for knowledge transfer that they experienced. So Lana and Skylar, as both your community liaisons for the two different regions, how have you worked together on this project to help transfer Mi'kmaq knowledge to different stages of the research and to other knowledge holders?
I can start. Thank you, Shelley. So as a community liaison on this project, we make sure that we're providing Mi'kmaq knowledge in many ways and aspects during this project. Some examples of this is just showing respect to sensitive information and knowledge, like teaching our team how traditional knowledge and the knowledge that comes from the Mi'kmaq perspective needs to be respected and equaled. We do our monthly check-ins. We have a knowledge exchange. We do a mentorship with the students involved in this project. It's really great because it's a place where we can kind of like just relax and have conversations, but learn at the same time. We incorporate language, Mi'kmaq history and culture, Mi'kmaq knowledge on species, and local Mi'kmaq knowledge. And Skylar, would you like to tell a story about how we use that local knowledge?
Yeah, I have an example of this transfer of the local and Western knowledge. One would be the Mi'kmaq fishers know not to fish the lobsters like during a certain time in the summer months, like July and August, out of the respect that the lobsters are molting. So we were looking for a good time to start fishing. So we had the researcher, the master student coming from Dal, and we set out in the Bridor Lakes in September to collect samples of the lobsters, and we were just checking their status of their shell thickness to see when we can start tagging them. And once we had the cues where the lobsters met a certain shell thickness, then that's when we started to tag them. So using both knowledge systems, we were able to have that one goal where we would just start tagging the lobsters after knowing that they're not molting anymore in that season.
Mhm. So Alana and Skylar, that sounds like you guys have quite the diversity in some of the, in exactly what's been transferred, and also both informal and formal opportunities to help share knowledge. And Darren, how have you worked with Mi'kmaq knowledge holders, scientists, and other project partners to bring forward the local knowledge perspective?
It's a complex question for me. On my journey, I'll start with the academics, and I'll move to Mi'kmaq. My journey with the academics started in conflict, pretty much. As a fishery spokesman and a commercial fisherman, we disagreed with the papers that we were reading in many ways, from the fundamental point of view, from the very beginning of the paper, the capture techniques, the size of nets used, the reality, what's actually there compared to what they were saying was there. And then the interaction, it took years of interaction to break through that system and gain mutual respect. And now we finally end up working together. Dal, St. Mary's, University of British Columbia, Acadia, a bunch of universities. That took a long time to build that relationship. And similarly with the Mi'kmaq, my beginnings with the Mi'kmaq started differently. I didn't start in conflict. It started in friendship. So I had some very good Mi'kmaq friends that had like-minded ideals and thoughts, and it evolved into getting more friends and more people, meeting more people, networking, and finally, right to the top tables. I'm very honored to be now sitting at some of the consultation tables. Trusted. It's all about trust, respect, and understanding that your system of knowledge is not the only system of knowledge, and to respect others and actually try to learn others. Don't just try to command people to come to your system. It's just simply education is never over, and we can all learn more.
Thank you, Darren. I mean, it seems to be that you started off very much in a two-eyed seeing mode where there was conflict and where different knowledge systems collided. And I think it's one of those commonalities that Indigenous people also experience when working with scientists as well. So thank you for that perspective, and thank you for sharing. So I'm just going to go check now to see if we have any more questions that have come in from the audience. Okay, how about this one? What do you find unique of this collaboration, and why has this project been successful? Anybody want to take?
For me, I'll take that one first, if everybody wants to follow. What's unique about it is the structure of it's much more defined. So our first projects were simple. They were just informal collaborations. And then they went to structured partnerships. But this one is different. This one has been put together extremely well from the very beginning. Everybody's input's in there. We go through the hard discussions. We allow the freedom to speak candidly without, and we just allow that. It just happens. We can talk as we should. We're not too worried about stepping on each other's toes, mutual respect. And the structure of it, there's so many moving parts. Like Shelley can probably explain that better, where we have different committees. It just in constant communication. It's not like, okay, we're gonna meet in 6 months. We're literally somebody's meeting on a constant basis. And I think that communication respect has taken us to a place where we are.
Thank you, Darren. Skylar or Lana, would you like to also provide a perspective to this? Like, what do you find unique to this collaboration, and why has this project been successful?
I think it's unique by, I haven't seen other projects have so many different perspectives and come together for one main objective, and that's for, you know, information and data on culturally significant fish. We were, I think that's, you know, we have this goal. There's so many of us, when we usually work in silos, or, you know, you apply for this funding and that funding, but we've collectively came together for the benefit of these species. And I think that's why we have a commonality, and we're all individuals with different perspectives. So bringing those all in for one goal, I think that's what this project is about.
Great. And Skylar, would you like to answer that as well? What do you find unique in this collaboration, and why has this project been successful?
What I find unique is that we're taking people who are not like taking school or like have like a scientific background, and we give them the opportunity to have like the capacity building part of it.
Thank you, Skylar. And we do have another question. Can you provide examples where initial conflict or different perspectives led to a greater understanding?
I can speak on that. So at one point in the beginning of our project, there was samples taken from eels, and we weren't sure what the rest of the eels went. So I made sure that I noted that, you know, the Mi'kmaq way of life is not killing animals for not to consume. So when I heard that the researchers were getting the eels and taking the stomach content and destroying the rest of the eel, it hurt me as a Mi'kmaq person, because I don't believe in taking a life that I'm not going to use or eat. And, you know, I voiced my opinions, and they were heard and they were listened to. And, you know, now they have an understanding of why we do that as Mi'kmaq people. And next time they're going to work harder to make sure that we're aware of what they're doing, so that we could take the meat and the skins of the eels or whatever animal that we're researching on, and using those to give to community members for consumption. So I felt that my opinion was voiced, it was listened to, it was heard, and it was taken into consideration and understanding for the next time.
That's great. Thank you, Alana. And Darren or Skylar, do you have any examples where initial conflict or different perspectives led to a greater understanding?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Skylar.
Oh, yes, yeah. The first time when I first started working here, I used to have like anxiety about taking a fish out of its natural habitat, bringing it to the lab, cutting it open, putting the receiver inside, and to me that was it felt like I was doing a lot of like mutilating the fish and giving them like big disrespect. But after figuring out that like the whole project and everything, and going like taking the training workshop in PEI, where we did our best practices to make sure the fish weren't really in a very stressful environment. And we were really successful in the end, and with the handling of the species that were fishing and doing the studying. Like right now, I feel that the way we do things here through the training and everything, these fish are doing fine. And that was the only thing that really struck me at the beginning, was just the way everything is working. Like we're taking the fish out of their habitat and taking them under the knife, just for the research part. But in the end, as my grandmother would say, everything is good.
There's usually always conflict at the beginning of these. You see it, most of it comes from the want for control, I believe. Regulators and or academics are used to having that control. When you get into these partnerships, it's easier to not control, and it's easier just to accept. We accept the academic system's recording method pretty much already, both Mi'kmaq and fishermen, and that should be, and basically focus on that we're going to still record in the academic way because it's accepted through law and everything else, but the control is unneeded. With a local user, from my eyes, we don't have a legislated reason for anybody to deal with us, and that's usually a problem. And we find that we get left out. We're not, to be perfectly blunt, Shelley and I talked about this before. I probably said I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to probably do it. Is, we're not trendy, and we don't have a legislative framework for anybody to pay attention to our LK or local knowledge. So we always end up being semi-left out. I'm in a position where I work with enough people now that I can voice myself and feel okay and safe. That, okay, we're over here, don't forget us. And I think people should be aware of that a bit more. And I believe Shelley voiced to me afterwards that she felt the same way for many years, as traditional knowledge wasn't in the Fisheries Act so much, and it wasn't necessary. So I think for us fishermen, the conflict comes where people don't have to deal with us legally, and it usually flows into these projects. This one, perhaps a little bit in the beginning, but no longer.
We're going to leave some of the questions for later on, because it appears that their questions may be answered with the next section. So we'll proceed. And I guess I just want to recap some of the goals of our project. And there are several goals. And one of those is to enhance our understanding of the movements of culturally significant species on a both small and large geographic scale. But importantly, there are other goals too that as partners share. For example, research is used to answer shared gaps in knowledge by partners in a meaningful way. And the research is designed to take those needs into consideration. And often First Nations lack opportunities to house and use their own data until it's peer-reviewed and published. And it may not be in a format that is user-friendly. So accessibility of the data in a timely manner and user-friendly format is important to First Nations. And the other goal is to share data so that all parties can learn from each other during the project rather than after the project is completed. So I guess my last question to the panelists would be, how are the different groups involved in Apoqnmatulti'k working together towards a shared goal? And we'll start with Alana.
I can give examples of some ways that we've been working together from my perspective. So being able to pick the species from the beginning, those culturally significant species, especially to the two areas, to the two different regions, like what was important and wanting to be more recognized and find out more information on in our area was the tomcod. And in Skylar's area, Skylar and Shelley's area, they picked eel and lobster. So being able to pick those culturally significant species from the beginning and not being told what to do or what to pick or what needed to be researched is a great way or a great example of that. Being able to have that knowledge exchange. So learning them, not, I shouldn't say them, but you know, academics and research and scientists learning Mi'kmaq worldviews and ways of life, and us learning the scientist stuff. You know, I also went to PEI and did the fish surgery course, you know, and I had the same feelings as Skylar, and it's, you know, and we've worked through that and you know, came over those humps. So there's like knowledge exchange. And being able to have a voice and feel respected, because sometimes our voices are quiet or shaky, but in this group, and especially in our meetings and stuff, we have a voice and it's respected. So I appreciate that. And I feel like that's a core component of working together. Everyone having open minds and open hearts, you know, giving time for people to listen and to talk, and the willingness to understand and include all aspects of each other's work and knowledge and perspectives.
Well, that's hard to follow. Elena, that was a great job. Yeah, you're hard to follow on that one. Anyways, I think the first thing is to understand each other's goals. Like, what is your goal? What is the Mi'kmaq's goal with the project? What is a local fisherman's goal? What is the academic's goal? Because usually our goals aren't the same. You know, as I said before, a lot of academics, now students do the work, students the product, the papers the product. With us, we want productivity, prosperity, or we want to preserve it for future generations. When you do it and you understand each other's goals, and you do what Lana said, we start from the beginning, we hash that stuff out, it eliminates conflict. And it really does. Like I don't see any conflict in our group at all, which is quite amazing when you look at the diverse group we have. In the end, when we do this stuff together, like for myself, I'll pick the fishing gear for my area. I'll pick the seasonal timing. So what we call, we're not picking blueberries in December, where there is no blueberries in December. Like a lot of studies we see, people are fishing at improper times and they come up with zeros. We have many examples of that with us. When you put all the different knowledge holders together, we're no longer missing the seasonal timing. We're hitting the seasonal timing, whereas that's not always thought about without the group. We're using proper gear techniques. We eliminate conflict by having the discussions throughout the study, and then at the end, it seems that we all pop out honestly on the same page, which doesn't happen very often. It's a very good tool for governments, in my opinion, to embrace this kind of stuff, because you know, if everybody's agreeing, you eliminate a lot of the stress from everybody. I tried to write some stuff down, but I'm not good at that part, Shelley, and I apologize. But you know, we complement each other. We fill in the holes of each other's weaknesses. We always talk about strengths, but we also have weaknesses. And when we do this together, meaningfully, with trust, we literally fill in the holes. So that's.
And Skylar, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I like how the research is based on the Mi'kmaq needs. You know, we have people from all over listening to how we use our research design, and everybody sees that we are really helping each other. And another thing I really like about how our groups, every month we have steering committee meetings. There's one steering committee that all of us are on, and we're telling each other ideas and like how to do certain things, and we give an update on our parts from around the project. And also we have another committee with the students where we all pretty much the same thing. We sit down and we give updates and all that. So everything is done monthly. Yeah? And the way I see it is there's a huge support system with the project, that nobody is like falling behind, and everybody is picking each other up and or dusting each other off or something like that. And that's probably one of the best things about the project, is that we all are connected and we're helping each other out. Apoqnmatulti'k.
Shelley, if I could I add something?
Sure.
Just Skylar just triggered it. What I always feel like is we speak different languages, even though we're speaking English or French or whatever we speak, or Mi'kmaq. But I don't mean it that way. I mean, we literally think differently, speak differently, and we don't always understand each other. This project has greatly helped many people understand each other, just to speak to each other. Like Shelley, when we first started this, was teaching people how to say Mi'kmaq, Mi'kmaqi, just simple things, like things you do say and you don't say. I mean, most people are it's hard to approach somebody from a different system, and you know, you have to learn how to actually speak to them first. You know what I mean? Like, how do you respectfully talk to Mi'kmaq? How do you actually talk to an academic if you're not an academic, right? I mean, or a fisherman even. So I think the first step that was way back that we conquered was, may not be the right word neither, that we successfully achieved was we learned how to talk to each other. Simple.
Okay, thank you, Darren. I think we'll turn to some questions. They're starting to pile in a little bit, so we're going to take a few questions now. And we have one, Claudio. I was wondering if you could comment on what would be appropriate ways for sharing the knowledge that is produced or gathered through a partnership like this.
Whatever was agreed upon. When you begin, you agree upon how it's shared. And we sit down, we hashed out how it's shared. And each project will likely be different.
Thank you, Darren. Alana and Skylar, would you like to comment on what would be the most appropriate ways for sharing knowledge through partnerships like this?
I think that it would be making sure that we're respectful and making sure that whatever knowledge that we're gathering, that we have permission and consent from those that we've gathered it from to share this, and letting them pave the way to how it could be shared and what that looks like. I think that's a huge component, because it's not our information, even though we take it to use for data and for information in a project. At the end of the day, it's still not our data. And I believe that being respectful and having consent to use that data for further information or outreach, it's up to the individual to do that.
Okay, great, thanks, Skylar. There's one here, an individual's looking for some advice, and it's a graduate student who's going to be collecting fish and invertebrates in Mi'kmaqi. And they have to submit an animal use protocol, which do not include the principles of two-eyed seeing. And this individual is wondering, is there anything that they can do to ensure the samples on the land are collected respectfully and with consideration of Mi'kmaq values? A very practical question, I think.
It is. I was looking to you to answer that, Shelley. I think that reaching out to the most local community or organization like UINR or MCG, just to kind of say, hey, like, we're in this area, we're doing the project. Is there any way that you can help or give advice? I think reaching out is your first step. And that's the most respectful thing you can do, is reach out and saying, hey, we're in your territory and we're wanting to do these things. Can you help us out? So.
Great. And the other question that came in is, what are the main barriers that came with collaborating, and how did you overcome them? So what were the main barriers for collaboration and how you overcame them?
I think not so much for myself, but for many, it's funding and the focus put on these kind of projects. And I assume that's probably one of the biggest barriers, if you want to get right to that at the beginning, is having the buy-in from people that aren't part of these, because normally there are professors out there are fighting for funding, students, Mi'kmaq, everybody, government, everybody's trying to access pots. And until this cooperation is recognized and duly funded, I think that might be one of the biggest barriers I see as picking the right people. It's not a barrier, I guess, but I do believe your selection process being rounded enough, it's a barrier, and you got to figure it out who's your time, because this is a lot of time. It's a lot of time invested in these relationships. This is not normal. It's a very time-consuming process. So you can only access the same people so many times. Finding more people interested, which is what Scholar alluded to before he dropped off, where he was brought in as well as others, because we couldn't find students, Mi'kmaq students, enough Mi'kmaq students. So, it was brought forward. Well, why don't we look for somebody that wants to be a student, somebody that's interested in this? We had to change the mindset. That was a barrier. We overcame that barrier by saying, let's go find. And if I'm not mistaken, there was over 30 applicants immediately from one band alone. And maybe a little bit off of those numbers, but Scholar was the chosen one, and he worked out beautifully, as well as others, right? That was a barrier. But I think funding would be in recognition of the process and the students, accessing Mi'kmaq students as well as others, in showing that there's a place for Mi'kmaq in biology is a barrier that I see that we're starting to overcome. But there's a few.
Alana, barriers and how you able to overcome them?
Barriers, I think I had more personal barriers than the group-wide barriers, just because I don't have the science background, and I'm not an expert when it comes to Mi'kmaq knowledge. I think I will be an expert when I'm 80. So just being young and not having that academic background or that science background was a barrier for me, but I overcome it by learning and asking and looking to our group for advice and guidance, reading more sciencey documents, participating in more activities. So those were barriers for me personally, and this group is amazing on helping us overcome that. So
Great. We have time for a few more questions. So sometimes it feels like academics or environmental groups are in a rush to get to two-eyed seeing. What would you like for academics to know, to slow down, to listen, to build lasting relationships and a friendship? Is there anything else that you might want to expand on?
I like to see academics, instead of I see a one-way, almost a one-way street, and I don't mean to be, it's not completely one way, but you have the idea of two-way seeing is not the same as what's actually happening in many cases. I see a lot of Indigenous people going towards the academic system, but I don't see a lot of academics going towards the Indigenous knowledge system and or the local knowledge system. I mean, you put an education of a normal academic, average academic would be, I don't know, 5 to 9 years. And, if you look at how much time they spent with local fishermen or how much time they spent with Indigenous people, it would be 4 to 5 days. Yet we have Indigenous peoples going into academic and on an increasing level, which is excellent. But I think that we need to keep it a two-way street so we don't override the value of the traditional or Indigenous knowledge and or local.
And I think we touched on it before, just making sure that, because sometimes I feel like academics are bound by deliverables and deadlines and stuff like that. And, just understanding that, these relationships and building those relationships, even initial contact takes time. And sometimes those academic things don't allow that. And maybe it's, working and volunteering within the communities or Mi'kmaq organizations on your free time and getting to know us and to know our community members. They said the best way you can learn from an elder is to help them with their chores or help them stack wood. And I think that's true. That's how we learn. And I think that's how you start building those relationships.
Looks like Skylar has joined us again, but it won't be fair to throw him into the question. But we're going to give this question to Skylar first. If you had the opportunity to start the project again, would your first steps change or remain the same? And if they did change, how so?
I would probably look into getting more learning done from the academic side, just so that there aren't as many barriers. And at the same time, I would have liked to visit more elders and sit down and have tea with them, gather all their knowledge, not all of their knowledge, but they are mostly more than happy to have you sit down and have them listen to them. And that's one thing I would have changed. Like nowadays, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to elders about how things were done in the past and how things should still be done or still going on these days. But I would really like to have started, well, if I were to start again, I would like to learn from both sides, like get more schooling done and at the same time be more of a elder, like visit my elders a lot more.
Okay, thank you, Skylar. Lana or Darren?
I think I'll have to agree with Skylar. I wouldn't change anything. I think the life of this project is amazing and the journey of it's going really well. It just in the beginning, I think it would have been nice to get our project partners, out of the labs and out of the classrooms and stuff and into the communities and learning from those elders and those people and, getting them down there in the mud with Darren and, learning hands-on stuff. So I think that's the only thing I would change. Other than that, I think this is a great project and I'm so honored to be a part of the journey with this project. Darren?
And for me, this is the sixth kick in the can with the similar projects, and I wouldn't change this one actually. I think I'm happy with. I'm quite happy with it actually, so I wouldn't actually change anything on this one from my end.
Yeah, and definitely, I think even with the COVID restrictions and things like that, I think the group adapted very well to maintaining the communication and keeping it going, for sure. So I do have another question is, what were the first steps taken for initiating and developing this collaborative project with such a big network and diversity of partners?
Can you handle that one? First step for me was prior to this project. OTN Fred came to me and he wanted to work with Mi'kmaq and from Dalhousie University, and I was on the Shubenacadie River Committee. I was the only non-Indigenous on that committee, and they wanted to track tom cod, and I had my own personal receiver collection. So Fred had mentioned he wanted to start trying to figure out how to work with Mi'kmaq at the time, and I said, well, give me 5 minutes. I made the phone call, got hold of MCG. They went through their hierarchy, came back down. They were all game. I lent my receivers. Fred found 20 tags, and I went up and did the surgeries for tom cod. And then boom, we ended up saying, oh, that worked well. We all worked together. Everybody was happy, excited, elders right straight through to academics. And then now that relationship began, that was the very fun foundation, and the trust was built, then that somehow evolved into this. And Shelley, we were lucky enough to get somebody like Shelley Denny, which I think is extremely important to this project. She brings an absolutely unique element to it. She has both sides of the academic and Indigenous, and well respected. And we had the right people. We just had the right people.
Lana or Skylar?
I think Darren said it all, to be honest. So I'm just going to leave that one unless Skylar has something.
Yeah, when the position was offered, the first thing that came to mind, they were talking about like doing the tracking stuff with the Bridor Lakes. And my whole life I've been living on the Bridor Lakes, and it's been my playground. So, you know, and with seeing that we're going to be working a lot in the field, and I just had to grab the opportunity just to be in my element. You know, every other day we're out there on the field.
Yep. So I will just ask maybe two more questions, and one will be, how will the knowledge generated from this project be used?
I think that might be yours, Shelley.
Well, true, I guess. It is there to track the species itself and help make informed decisions for all parties involved, right? So I think the more that we know, sometimes it's better to have those you know, the knowledge to support those decisions. It's also been an understanding that we wanted to have regarding lobster movements within the Bridor for sure, and also to have other information, other data to support some of the uses the eels have for specific habitats that we weren't able to document other ways. So it was really good to be able to tag those eels and really get an understanding of sort of the local areas that are being used within the Bridor Lakes as well. But would anybody else like to offer some of the way knowledge can be used?
So our knowledge will be collected and brought back to their community and our working group so that they can make decisions as well. And just we can use the information to track the movements and making sure that it's still, you know, the habitats are great for these species, and just making sure that the overall health of the rivers and the habitat and the fish are good. So I think that the information and data collected will be going to our communities.
I have a thing for how I'd like to see it used. I don't have an answer for how it will be used. I would like to see our information get put with other studies that we've done similar. Whereas this one's mostly acoustic, we also have pit tag studies and capture studies for species like Atlantic tomcod, which is a focus of this project. I would like to see it put together so it could be a better management tool for perhaps even Indigenous co-management, as it's a culturally significant species, the only fish in the Mi'kmaq calendar, with DFO. You know, do a co-management on that species, as it hasn't been seen as economically important per se, but it's most certainly economically important to some people, but it's more culturally important, it's more ecosystem important. And perhaps it could be a good place to start to take this combined collaborative knowledge and work on a positive story of co-management of a species that's not going to rile up anybody. I think that's how I'd like to see it done. I know that's not how it's going to be used likely, but that's what I would like to see.
Okay, Scarlett, would you like to answer?
No, Darren answered my question had pretty much what I was thinking too.
Okay, great. Okay, I guess for the final question, what are you most proud of in this project?
For me, it's Skylar. The suggestion that I made that we start asking who wants to be an academic or who wants to do science versus who has it and never been able to find enough people. And for the academics to accept that. That was my proudest moment of making that suggestion, saying, and then it being accepted, and then finding people like Skylar and others. That's what I think this project's changed. It has worked, and we've shown it has worked, and it can work, and it's very beneficial, especially with a group of people that aren't necessarily, the youth don't see biology necessarily as the step for the future. But if you start, giving the opportunities, the youth will say, oh, well, Skylar's doing this, that's cool. And then they start entering universities and start gaining that education. And then perhaps someday we'll have more Mi'kmaq biologists, and we'll have that perspective in DFO more, or we'll have that, or the regulator, whoever that may be.
I think for me, the proudest moment, or like the best moment, is watching the journey of collaboration and inclusion, and that leading to equality, the equality of all of the perspectives, all of the knowledge. And I think that journey there was my most proudest moment, because, being respected by others, even though I don't have a science background, it's good. It's a good feeling, especially when you're at work and you're doing projects like these. And I think that, having that equal perspective of everyone is one of my proudest things.
My proudest thing about the whole project is that it's one big or a huge support system. And I find that we couldn't get a better outcome or goal if we all didn't get around to help each other. And like the namesake of the project is also my most proudest thing about it, is Apoqnmatulti'k Steering, which means let us help each other.
Great. And I guess maybe I'll just ask anyone here if they'd like to share any final thoughts about the project before we close today.
I'd like to say, oops,
Sorry.
go ahead, Lana, please.
Mine's really short. I just like to say that, Albert took a while to come up with the perfect name for this project. And even though I struggle saying it, I think that the word for our project is amazing. And I think that we lived up to what that word means, and that is helping each other. And I think that our group has lived up to the expectation of our name. So.
For me, if this system is adopted by others in an evidence-based collection system that wants to manage something, it'll work. If it's in a decision-based manufacturing mode, politically, it will not work. And I think some people may not understand what I'm saying, but this system will work if we want to base things on evidence. And because it creates an environment where the conflict is taken care of prior to the ending. From Indigenous, commercial fishermen, academics, we all end up agreeing on these projects in the end because we work together so well. So the only time they don't work is if we're in a decision-based evidence manufacturing process where it's political. So if you want to adopt it, I wouldn't try it in that system first. I'd try it in an evidence-based system.
Sky, would you like to answer any final thoughts? Share some final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to see more environmental groups and like academic groups see the project of Apoqnmatulti'k as a model for like using like Mi'kmaq based or like Indigenous or local knowledge based like knowledge holders and academic holders to have this 2IC part. It would be nice to see more groups doing pretty much the same thing that we're doing here.
Great. Thank you, Skylar. Well, as we're getting ready to end this session, I would just like to extend a thank you to our panelists for taking the time to share their experience and perspectives and discuss some of the successes and also the barriers too of this project. So, walalio. And on behalf of the project and our panelists, I would like to extend our thank you to the audience for attending this event. And I know it took some time out of your day, so walal'i'k. And this recording will be made available on the Apoqnmatulti'k Facebook page and website to watch later, and also please share with others. And make sure to like our Facebook page for project updates and future events, and stay tuned for future project updates. So, multis.
Multis, Walalin.
Multos, Walalio.